My Michelle Live, Entertainment Review. Roll out the red carpet. Here's Michelle.
I kind of would like it, Big Voice Guy, if you could follow me around and when I walk into a room, have that music play. It would just be really good for my self-esteem. I don't know, but you know what else is good for my self-esteem? Having amazing guests. And that's what we have today as you and I get geared up for Easter. There's a lot of ways that we celebrate Easter. And one thing traditional in our family, and I think a lot, is just getting in the groove with some good entertainment. You watch a couple of films, it's a way to tell the story with the kids. There's a lot of other cool ways too we might get into today, but let me introduce you to my guest. Now, this man has been a long-time journalist. He's covered politics, faith, even entertainment, and he's going to fill us in with how you can get connected with PureFlix and binge watch Easter until the 4th of July. So it's pretty cool. Billy Hallowell is with us today. Hey, Billy, it's good to connect with you again.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Okay, we'll get into some films and some recommendations, but do you have any unique ways that you guys celebrate or get ready for Easter or try to drive into your family, maybe kids, what Easter's about? We need that right now. We need a little Easter.
We do. I feel like after this year, we need a whole bunch of Christmases, a whole bunch of Easters. We need a whole bunch of a lot of things. But it's for our family. I love new traditions, and we've actually started a new tradition. It's something we were doing at Thanksgiving that has now transferred over to Easter. And every day we have this tree, and this is going to sound crazy to some people because you're going to say, "Wait, you have an Easter tree?" And I guess the answer is yes, sort of. We kind of have an Easter tree, but we have this light up tree. It's not a big tree, and on the tree, we have these eggs that you can write something you're grateful for on. You can do it with a dry erase marker, so you can use it every year. And so, yeah, we've got this Easter tree, and the kids sit down, and we sit down, and we write one thing a day that we're grateful for up through Easter, right? So you fill the tree with these eggs, and the idea is that on Easter morning, you've got a whole bunch of stuff that you're grateful for, and you can reflect on it. So we do that at Thanksgiving and also at Easter, and obviously the point is to point us back toward God and our gratitude for everything he's given us. And so what better time than the holidays to be thinking about those things?
That is really a cool idea. I love that. That's what you listen to shows like this for, to get those kind of cool ideas. Have you seen the resurrection eggs? Have you seen those?
I have.
Yeah,
I
those are
have.
pretty neat.
Yes. And so that's another thing we do. You're referring to the ones, I forget what company makes them, where every egg has a different part of the story in it, right?
Yeah. It's
Yes.
like the whole passion put
Yes.
into the little plastic Easter eggs in a cardboard carton, and that's great. If you don't find that company or you want to save some money, you can be a little creative, get those eggs yourself, save a egg carton, and each egg, for some people, they use different colors to represent different parts of the Easter story. So having a rock, a cross, one that's empty,
What a fun project to
the empty
make that.
tomb. Right, your whole
Yeah, like
family, you
make
could
that
do
with your family.
yeah, just think of
Yeah.
the 12 maybe steps that and wait a palm leaf. There's neat things that you can do, and then you hide those. That's much better than hiding real eggs that sometimes you don't find and then your dog does later. Yeah, true story. I love it.
Or
And
you
you
smell it later, you realize, oh, it was
oh,
under the
oops.
cushion and I forgot.
It's terrible. No kidding. I know it's true. It's right. Now I'm in the Northwest. Where are you?
So today I'm in Pennsylvania, but we live outside of New York, just outside of New York City. So we are in the Northeast.
Okay. Well, I don't know how the rain is there, but it's always raining on Easter. It's just and it's like a misty thing, right? It just rains, and so we still go out. We do Easter egg hunts, but a real true story. I owned an establishment. A family came in just after Easter. The little girl was still wearing her dress, and I said, "Did you have a nice Easter? Did you do Easter egg hunts?" And she said, "No," and she was really pouty. And her mom said she's really mad because it didn't rain this year, and she thought that the tradition was that you go out in the mud, you get your pretty dress all icky, and you look for Easter eggs in the mud. That's what Easter was for them. I was like, it's a
parent's
different
worst nightmare is her dream, right? The parent's worst nightmare that her dress is getting all ruined on Easter Sunday. That's what this kid wants.
Right? And, I'm thinking that sounds like fun to me. That's how I grew up. But, all that to say, we all have different neat things that we do to celebrate Easter. But one thing that we all have in common in our society, we tell our stories and relay our culture through film a lot. And there are so many neat films that are out there. Some are spectacular. Some are just good, but they have a great message. But each one has their place, I think, Billy. And as we go into Easter, I really want to get into maybe some films that we know of and need to be reminded of, and films that maybe we didn't consider.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny, as you were saying that, there are so many movies on PureFlix right now that I was just watching one yesterday. I was watching Risen. And Risen is a film.
That's the gold
really
standard.
Well,
oh, I love that film.
yes.
I love it.
Oh, it's such a good movie. And if you haven't seen it, right, you're seeing the resurrection story through the eyes of a Roman soldier. And he's a fictional character, but there were so many obviously real life Roman soldiers. And you could imagine as you're watching this movie what it was like to be a Roman soldier and to witness at the time the crucifixion and death of Jesus. And then in the case of this particular soldier, he's sort of journeying through understanding those details surrounding it, and he's being challenged. Was this maybe a real thing? Was Jesus maybe telling the truth? And so it's a phenomenal film that takes a very real life story and puts it through this lens of a character who you can relate to. And for me, the thing I love most, you were talking about some movies are just spectacular, like Risen. Some are just good, but they have a great message. For me, the thing that I love the most is a story that gives us a lens into the character and who they are. And there is a TV series called The Chosen, which a lot of people in Christian circles have become very well aware of. I'm sure you've heard of The Chosen. And what The Chosen does so beautifully is it transports us into the biblical world. We can read scripture, we can read the Bible, see those stories, but it gives you an idea of what would it have actually been like to be a person, again, who is there watching, and not just watching, but experiencing in real time as a follower of Jesus, the fear, right? The anxiety, the pain, then all of the amazing things that follow that. And so that series, it's broader than just the resurrection, obviously. In fact, the series hasn't even gotten to that yet. But it's telling the stories of Mary Magdalene and Jesus's followers and the disciples. And so I love that story-driven lens that lets me know, wow, I don't know what those people said and did in their interactions, but this gives me an idea of what it might have been like.
I like it. And here's why. I think a lot of Bible stories and Bible movies from I'm sorry for those of you who aren't watching, those were Michelle's magic quotation fingers. Often they tell their story, but it's very Hollywood-esque, or it's done indicative of the time that they're in. Everybody, if it's in the 70s, everybody has 1970 hairdos, and, and there's a lot of our culture that's put into it. What I'm seeing in films now is more of an immersive experience where you really are there really is an attention to detail of what it was really like, what the sights and the sounds and the clothing and the people and the differences, but also the similarities. I enjoy that because otherwise it's just sometimes it's okay, it's another nice story, but having that understanding. Oh, and get this, see if you agree with me on this. Some of that is important because I think that with the Bible, we read it the same way Hollywood has made movies about it. We read it
Yes.
in
Yes.
context to what I'm experiencing today and what today is like. But when you look at it through history and through the culture of the time, it gives a real deep meaning, a deeper meaning that even transcends to our time.
Yeah, and to be able to really put yourself in that person's shoes and to remember that these are real life human beings, right? I think because of how we talk about scripture appropriately, when scripture is elevated up, we elevate the stories up to a place where we, I think, sometimes no longer remember that humanity. And one of the
Oh,
remarkable
that's
things
right.
about the Bible is that we see the humanity in all of, I mean, Peter denying Christ, right? I mean, all of these things. And it's so easy to say, well, how could you do that? He was there the whole time. But then you go into the story and you see how that might have looked and the pressure that was there and and you think about, well, gosh, how have I reacted in my own life when I've had pressure that was nowhere near as intense as that? And so you get a chance to really appreciate through film, through TV, who these people really are and were. And that to me is a really incredible thing. Now, again, that doesn't mean, I think people sometimes can also get very worked up about, well, these dialogues weren't in the Bible. It's like, well, of course not. You're taking something and putting it into a film form, and you want it to be true to the Bible. And the one thing I love about all the things we have at PureFlix is they are true to the Bible, but you get that idea of what it might have been like, and that's huge.
It's exciting to watch when you can get that entire experience. And yeah, for those of you who are purists, then don't watch Risen because we don't know for sure that there was a Roman soldier by that name who it's kind of
Right.
like BC CSI, right? It kind of, has that awesome, it's awesome. But no one is making these films saying thus saith the Lord, and if you're that uptight about it, then that's not these may not be the film for you. But it really does. There are so many stories, and I've said this before, Billy. The Bible itself says if we were to tell all the stories of all the things that Jesus did, all the people he touched, all of the miraculous things that took place, the whole world could not contain the volumes of
Right.
books that were written about it. And if you want to put it in our terms, there's not enough disk space, people. There's just not enough disk space.
The USB cannot fit it all, and that is but it's so true. And I think we have to remember that. So we have to remember that, and also, I mean, a lot of people, we don't know where their stories ended. We don't even, Jesus's father Joseph, where did he, we don't know. So you're not given all those details. And so what a lot of these filmmakers do is they go in, they're true to the scriptures, and they create a story around that or within that. And it's really, I think we're going to see even better content coming. What we have now is phenomenal, and it's growing, and there's so much excitement. There's a lot of kids content too, which, when I was a kid, there wasn't as much when it came to Easter that was really well done. There's Lion of Judah, which is an animated film. It's kind of cute through the eyes of the animals, right? At the
Yeah,
time
yeah.
of the crucifixion, what it might have been like. There's, of course, Veggie Tales, Twas the Night Before Easter, and a number of other Easter specials. There's at least two on PureFlix. So it's great to have this content and this time of year, especially after the pandemic and the pain and the uncertainty and the chaos of that, to be able to come together around this content and rally around this content. And I would also say, one thing for me, I like to look at Hollywood and movies as worldview builders, because that's what they are. And many times they're not positive worldview builders, right? But when you're talking about Christian entertainment, you're talking about faith and family friendly films, they're building a worldview. Everything we take in, everything we watch, everything we listen to, it builds that up. And so if you're a parent, and you're thinking about how do I raise my kid in a way that they're going to grow up loving the gospel, understanding the gospel? Well, a lot of it has to do with obviously church and how we raise them, but also part of that is what entertainment are we taking in? What are we listening to? What are we watching? And so I always encourage people to think about that, because we, even as adults, we are building or sustaining or propping up or rebuilding a worldview with what we consume.
Well put. We can also utilize some of the worldviews that don't really fit into our own home theology as learning moments. And that's often why we do this entertainment review too, is giving parents insight. Every family has their own tolerance levels, sensitivities. So, I'm not here to tell you what to watch and what not to watch, but to give you the tools to choose for yourself and for your family. There are times where I would rather sit down and watch a film and expose kids to some things that they're going to experience in the real world than to just hide them away. And then when they turn 18, say, okay, there you go. And they're like, what? Right? So, there are ways that we can utilize films. And as we encroach upon Easter, it is a really good way to remind kids, to get them grounded in that Easter story. I mean, it's a story that billions of people celebrate all over the planet. Why 2,000 years later, this brutal happening in history and the death of an innocent man, we celebrate? Why? What is it about that? And before we go on to some other films, Risen is one that gets into some of the very historical documentation of the resurrection. We'll be talking. We're talking a little bit more today on some of the insights from the resurrection, some of the actual CSI, what is provable and what is not. And if you missed our Tuesday program, we talked about the science of the resurrection, so you can go back there and listen. Let's talk a little bit more about some of your faves. I wanted to highlight PureFlix too, because that is a place that people can go, kind of a one-stop shop for a lot of good family entertainment that you know will fit in with your worldview.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we talked about The Chosen, which I love. I love The Chosen. Lion of Judah, the Veggie Tales series. You've also got Apostle Peter and the Last Supper, where that's a real biblical feature. It's got Bruce Marchiano in it, and you get a chance to see Peter recounting his life and legacy, obviously, in the faith. And so there's so many titles. Remember the Bible series, Mark Burnett and Roma Downey, that's also streaming on PureFlix. So you've got a lot of options, and I love all of those. Again, my thing is, tell me the story, take me into the story, show me who these people are, help me understand the context. I mean, you mentioned the fact we're still talking about Jesus 2,000 years later, and not only are we talking about it, it's a faith that has grown every part of the world. There's something, obviously, and we know as Christians what that is, but there's something about this story that has attracted people to it. And you look at the stories of people and how they've changed as a result of becoming Christians and what that means to them in their lives and their families' lives. There's so many components to this, and reflecting on that in film is really important. And I would say one of my favorite movies of all time, and one of the ones that is not an Easter movie per se, but it's one that we should be watching at Easter. And we have a little, if you go over to PureFlix, there's a little channel under it that says Enter into Easter, and that's where all of these films are. And The Case for Christ is there. And The Case for Christ is Lee Strobel's story. And for those who haven't seen it, obviously the book, we all know the book, and the film recounts his marriage and his life and becoming what it was like to become a Christian after being an atheist for so long and trying to disprove it. And so that, to me, though, a story like that is the Easter story, right? Like the Easter story is entering in to that, and you get a chance to see the effect of it.
It's not a story for kids.
No,
I mean, it's going to be over their head and a little dull, but for adults, it's well done, and it chronicles this writer and his investigation, trying to disprove the gospel, trying to disprove this whole Jesus thing, because his wife has turned into this crazy Christian chick. He's like, I gotta save her. I gotta save her. Good for him. This is what's very cool too to me about the Bible. It is unique among religious texts in that God himself says, test me, try me, prove me. It is not afraid of ask the hard questions, try to disprove it, go ahead, you go for it.
it's also not afraid, and I meant to say this before I started inching towards this, but it's not afraid to show people's flaws, right? When you talk about Peter and the denials, when
Yes.
you talk very often when it comes to holy books, you're presenting the best of the best, right? You're not going to show that weakness. And the Bible is filled with people who not only are weak at moments, but they show some of the worst behavior
Good
at moments. And
point.
I mean, I was just,
Yeah.
going through the story of Jonah with my kids, and we're talking about Nineveh, and we're, explaining that he didn't, God kept telling him, you're going to go, and he didn't want to go. He goes the opposite direction, right? And that's like so many of us. The Bible is reflective of human stories of real people, and you don't get that in a lot
That
of
is
other
so true.
places,
You're
which I
not going to
which I love.
hear that Mohammed had flatulence or something. It just doesn't really happen. They're these demigod like figures, and it's true. And you see the best, and you see the worst. And if I were going to write a text about my faith, I would probably, if I knew it was going to last 2,000 years, I probably wouldn't want some of the things that are in the Bible written about. Right? I mean, but
Well, it's like
then
going into
you
a job interview and leading with your worst qualities, right? I mean, you wouldn't do it because it's not, and I say that respectfully because I think it actually is what makes the Bible so true and so beautiful, is that it does
Yeah.
that. It tells these amazing stories of, life change. And I mean, look at the story of Saul slash Paul, right? I mean, look at that story of being a persecutor, a person who hands Christians over to die, who abuses Christians, who has this Damascus Road moment, and his entire life changes. And then he writes, a substantial portion of the New Testament, and is
Yeah.
one of the most transformative figures. Only Christianity writes those stories, right? And it's phenomenal.
And it's lessons for us too, because it really is okay to not go to church Sunday morning if you're a Christmas, Easter, Christian, and put on your church face and, oh, how are you? Oh, well, I'm just blessed. Hallelujah. Thank you very much. It's okay to be real. I mean, we need a little bit
Yep.
more of that. I'm not going to lie in the church. We've talked about how cool Christianity is, but sometimes we get into religiosity, and we like to cook the books and make things look like we're God's PR person. God doesn't need you to be his PR person. His strength is made perfect in your weakness, and that is part of the Easter story. We have a weakness in society. We see it more and more. In this Easter, this may be the time to watch a few films, see, get your family thinking, and see where the Easter story can bring a little resurrection into your life. We've been talking with Billy Hallowell. He is a longtime journalist and author. He's also giving us a little insight into Easter entertainment and even some really cool ideas. A little Easter tree. I like that, Billy. I really like it a lot. Are you guys?
Yeah, I mean, we wanted joy. We wanted some joy, so we were like, let's get an Easter tree. We had a Thanksgiving tree. I know people think we're crazy. We had the Thanksgiving tree going already, so we're like, we're gonna add it into Easter now. We're gonna do it.
I just got back from Narlands, and I didn't realize that those folks put up their tree early. They leave it, they leave it until like Easter. And, it just gets Mardi Gras decorations and then Easter decorations. It's just like, just keep the celebration going. And, where it comes to Easter, it's not just indicative of one day. When you really understand the Easter story, that is a celebration every single day, through your ups, through your downs, through pain and sorrow, through jubilation. Man, we've got something to celebrate, and we've been doing it with our friend Billy. Thanks for making time for us, Air 5. It's good to see you, man. Don't be a
Thank you. I
stranger. It's been
appreciate
a
it.
while.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Let's get you.
Boom. Yeah, that was the wrong soundbite. So we're just going to end with a smile today. That's